You're listening to the Picks from the Paddock, Turf Talk podcast.
Good evening. It is me, Rory Paddock, for picksfromthepaddock.co.uk. It is episode 8 of the Turf Talk podcast. As always, it's not just myself, but I am joined by two members of the team. As always, we've got Matt and we've got Chris. How are we doing, chaps?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good. Obviously, we've had quite a bit of racing over the last week. We're delayed. We're doing this on a Tuesday night. We normally do it on a Monday, but the whole world and the internet came to a halt last night. Apologies for that. First things first, chaps, I will get stuck into, and it is the, it's a bit of a debate. It was a Pontefract the other day. It was happened yesterday, didn't it? The alleged interference and the use of the phrase interpretation. For those that didn't see it, Kevin Stott aboard what was described the eventual winner causing interference to a horse, John Berry's. For those that didn't see it, what I will do is I'll see whether or not I can bring this up. Bear with me a moment. Bit of tech, see whether or not I actually know what I'm doing. Probably not. So there we go. See if we can do that. That's on the screen now. Yes, indeed it is. There we go. So for those that are watching on Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter, we'll see this now.
Furlong to go. And Stamina sapping Furlong to go. Winford and Deerham. These two in a titanic battle. A half furlong from the line. Deerham, Winford. Who wants it most? Deerham snatched up on the rail. Squeezed up by Winford. Winford first past the post. Deerham in second. The rest their way in third. And in fourth, first account.
So obviously, Deerham ends up picking up the victory under Kevin Stott for trainer Rebecca Menzies. But the trainer of the second, John Berry, was, well, to put it mildly, less than impressed. Chris, I'll come to you first. Your thoughts on that, bud?
Well, I understand John Berry's frustration, and I understand Emma Berry's frustration as well. They were both quite annoyed afterwards. And you can understand them being annoyed. I feel a little bit bad for Kevin Stott in a roundabout type way, because I don't think he's a dirty jockey, so to speak, or a jockey who wants to win at all costs. I think he's had a momentary brain fart or complete lack of concentration to what he's doing at the end of a 2-mile odd race where both horses were bound to be tired. I mean, look, from a stewarding point of view, Winford has eventually won by 4 or 5 lengths. So the fact that the stewards' inquiry did not last very long is not a big surprise. The interpretation part, which frustrates everyone, is, because Winford has won by so far, trying to see the runner-up not being, or the runner-up as a winner of the race without the interference is very difficult. Although the runner-up definitely had the favoured part of the track against that rail, it is hard to envisage, isn't it, that he'd have won the race given how far he was beaten. Now, look from a standpoint of the racing rules being broken, Kevin Stott has done pretty much everything wrong on this particular occasion. Now, jockeys all day were doing this at Pontefract. He weren't the only one, but he allows his horse to drift across the track. The horse is hanging into the runner-up, and then, unfortunately, to compound his error, Kevin Stott pulls his whip through into his left hand whilst the horse is hanging. I mean, if that was half a length, a neck, or something along them lines, you would say absolutely nailed on to be thrown out. And Pontefract is a funny track because it's a really stiff finish, and once you've had your momentum checked like that, you're never going to get it back. So I'm not criticising the jockey on the runner-up. I think her action in completely stopping and pulling the horse back was perfectly fine and reasonable. But on the interpretation line, the second is just never going to be given the race. And although Team Berry have objected and lodged an official objection to the result, it will not be thrown out. It definitely should be thrown out. They should be awarded the race, in my opinion, but it will never happen in a month Sundays because the BHA and the stewards have this interpretation bit that they hide behind all the time, and enough people will defend them. It's as simple as that. It's an absolute farce, in my opinion, but that's the way it is.
Matt, looking at the race, we've probably seen the replay a handful of times at least now. how convinced on a scale of, percentage wise, if those two horses running in a straight line, that the second would have won that race?
Well, I think the key thing is, it's the end of as Chris said, it was a 2 mile 2 staying flat race on desperate ground up a stiff finish, and you can see what Kevin Stott has done there is that the one thing you need in those sort of attritional conditions is momentum. So any checking or breaking of a horse's stride in those sorts of scenarios can make a huge difference. Now, if Kevin Stott's just got his head down, he's got his stick in his wrong hand, the horse has already started drifting from one side of the track to the other, and he's actually made no attempt whatsoever to straighten the horse or even put his stick in the correct hand, i.e. the right hand, to stop it laying in on top of Derham. But what he's done there, and what a lot of jockeys do, is when you've got momentum, you need to keep the horse going forward. So if he'd have grabbed hold of that horse's left rein, and maybe the horse had changed legs or just for a moment hesitated in its stride, then yeah, I think Derham, because he had the stand side rail, might have kept tabs on him. But the interference has happened as the winner's gone past, which has made it look like the winner would have won whatever. But it's very fine margins. Nobody knows what would have happened if they'd have run in a straight line. But there's no doubt that Kevin Stott had got his head down, and all he could think about was keeping his horse going forward. We saw it the other day in the Irish Champions Stakes with Ryan Moore. He made no attempt whatsoever to keep St Mark's Basilica straight, because it was all about momentum, wasn't it? There was the Bolger horse and Tanawa. There were three of them up sides, and he basically had his head down. And the moment you pick your reins up and try and straighten the horse up, it can check the momentum. So what most jockeys do these days is just keep that momentum up, and if it means them intimidating another horse, they're gonna take that chance the majority of the time. But who knows which way it would have gone had Stott tried to straighten the winner up, but he didn't, because he knew that if he had have done, the other horse would have had a squeak, because he like I said, it's all about momentum in those. We see it in jump racing and when the going's attritional. You just have to keep these horses going forward, and if it means they're going forward but in a diagonal, I think a lot of jockeys will take that chance.
Yeah, I mean, Stott's had, if I'm correct, Stott's had, is what, 3-day ban for that? Is that right?
Yeah, he's got 3 days for it. Yeah.
3 days for it. I mean, it's one of those. It's a lot of hindsight, isn't it? I mean, from where I've seen it, I think I'm with you, Chris, in the sense that I don't think Stott has done anything intentionally, but I think he has been careless riding. But it is, I mean, John Berry's a small yard compared to the likes of Rebecca Menzies, and a win like that is going to account for a lot in terms of a whole season for a yard like that. How convinced I am that the places would have been altered or different. It certainly would have been a hell of a lot closer. There's no doubt about that. But I think you just it's one of those, isn't it? Yes, these things happen, but it's whenever just
to jump in there, Rory, like these things, a lot of this stuff is about communication, and you just wonder, like, this is not rocket science. There was the jockey of Derham, John Berry's jockey, wanted to lodge an objection in the first instance, and she spoke to the wrong person. Now, I literally can't understand, in a weighing room environment, when you've got the clerk of the scales, everyone's very close together. The scales are close. There's officials sat at the desk. How could that have not been picked up on? We've seen another fiasco tonight at Kempton with a photo finish. I'm not sure what, because we came on air, like the full story hasn't unravelled yet, but maybe they've called the wrong winner. Maybe it was a dead heat. Who knows? We'll find out in due course. But I literally can't understand how these communication errors can happen in such a small environment with very few people involved.
You think that WhatsApp went down?
It's
But
just
it is.
bizarre.
You're right. In a day like today, where we can send an email to anywhere in the world, send a text message, and an e-message, a phone call to anyone and everyone in the world. Look at streams and broadcasts from far-flung corners of the earth, and yet, an establishment such as the BHA and stewards and so on that have been there for goodness knows how long don't have the technology to don't get me wrong, there's always going to be human error, but I mean something as simple as that, not speaking to the right person, like you said, from the limited experience I can see in a weighing room, you've got that desk, you've got your scales, everyone's packed in, you're not walking past them unless you go into the change rooms, and that's it. And
just on the stewards, Rory, in my opinion, before long they're going to have to update these rules regarding interference, in particular when it's interference that is not being corrected. Matt spoke about Ryan Moore and the ride he gave St. Mark's Basilica. Honestly, you've never seen anything as bad in all your life. He made no attempt whatsoever to correct St. Mark's Basilica. And whilst I'm giving Kevin Stott a little bit of a pass, it was at the end of a 2-mile, 2-furlong race on desperate ground. He was probably knackered himself. It was at the end of the day. I mean, there are excuses there for him, but if you are going to break the rules so flagrantly like that, allowing a horse to hang, having the whip in the incorrect hand and so on, I've always started looking at the whip again, and the usual excuse for the whip is that it is used for corrective measures and everything else, or we start accepting that it's a tool used to win at all costs. To not correct himself, that is when the stewards, in my opinion, should be taking out interpretation and everything else, because he's made no attempt to stop what's happening. He should be thrown out on that ground alone.
I mean,
in my
it
opinion,
bad, doesn't it? That when you see him,
that's terrible when you see
with the whip in his left, and he's going to his left, and he's veering to his left. I mean, it becomes a little bit indefensible at that point. I mean, not to go into a broader subject, but I think it's something you and I have talked about, Chris, and sort of things that you shared. But the fact that, and I mean, like a fair amount of certain things within racing seem archaic, but I think the fact to have stewards as the sole representative that makes a decision on a course, to me, seem a little bit archaic, and why we don't have a central body that will sit at a screen where you can have 4 or 5 different angles like we have on on various racing channels, whether it's Sky Racing, whether it's Racing TV, whatever, and you can see various different angles from a central body. You could even employ 3 different people all sat at a central hub to see these races, watch them as they happen, and therefore stewards can refer to whatever the body may be, whether it's the BHA, whoever, as an overruling sort of governing situation. Obviously, you need on-course representation, stuff like weights, etc. A protocol for jockeys, someone to go to, speak to. But it does seem to me, I don't know if you agree, Matt, it does seem a bit of an archaic sort of setup in some respect,
Well, the main thing is, the thing that gets most people's back up is the inconsistency. One day you'll see a horse thrown out for something, and then the same thing will happen the next day, and you've got a different set of stewards at a different race course and won't see it the same way. Now, I know it's not, they're not machines, that we are dealing with animals who have got their own mind. So there has to be an element of interpretation, but the level of inconsistency is staggering. Really, you'll see the same things happen time and time again, and some incidents get punished and others don't. And I think that's what aggrieves a lot of people involved in the sport. Whether you're a punter, whether you're a jockey owner, trainer, it's the inconsistencies, isn't it? And I mean, there's certain occasion, if you go down the American route and the French, I mean, the French have become a little bit more relaxed about it, but back in the day, if you just came off your line and you interfered with a horse that finished down the field, you'd get thrown out. It was that extreme. Now, we don't want to see the best horses in the race get thrown out, and this is when it boils down to interpretation, and this is when it gets really tricky, because sometimes you can see that the best horses won, despite the fact that it might have hampered a couple of other runners. But I think there's a different side to it in terms of the jockey on board. If the jockey on board has made no attempt and has, we're not going to say Kevin Stott intentionally tried to put John Berry's horse through the rails, although that was the implication on the day. He's just got his head down, and his horse is running forward, even though it's going sideways. The momentum's there, but he's got to think that I could end up crashing someone through the rails here. And, they're riding that. I mean, they probably won't, you hear this classic, you say, oh, he's going 40 miles an hour. Those horses weren't going 40 miles an hour at the end of a 2-mile tour. But it's still going to hurt. It's still going to hurt if you get smashed.
I think it's like anything in any profession. You've got a duty of care to your fellow colleagues, in essence, albeit as a race, and we want to make sure it's competitive and people obviously give their all to win a race. But let's be real. That could have been quite nasty, potentially.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
And then if that poor girl, flies through the rails and ends up injured, or worse, or career's over.
He wasn't so far clear of that horse that he didn't know it was there. He knew that. Yeah. He knew the horse was there.
Yeah,
the runner-up was there.
He
couldn't have known it wasn't there. Because
one thing I'd probably say, obviously, we've seen over the last couple of years, we've seen VAR introduced into Premiership football, and they refer to what they call Stockley Park, where they've got a governing body there. I think something like that in racing could seriously work. If there's a stewards issue, we'll refer it to the live BHA, whatever it is, who can look at something, who can, and hopefully, you'll always get inconsistencies. Whenever it becomes a matter of opinion, there'll always be some sort of, grey area. But something like that, whether or not that could work. Anyway, I digress, chaps. Moving on away from that, we obviously saw on Sunday 6 Group 1s from Longchamp, culminating in a victory for the German outsider. I think it was 80-1 or something.
What was its name?
Oh, yeah, you were going to say that. You absolute sod. Torquato Tasso. There we go. You can. You absolute shit. Absolute shit. A lot of people cribbing it. Perhaps unfairly, Chris.
Yeah. You can't crib the horse for his performance throughout that race. He did everything right. He was proven on the ground. He's just handled the conditions better than anything else. It's as simple as that. There was no fluke about him. If you want to argue about the conditions being a massive factor and deciding the race, absolutely. But the horse that handled the conditions best won the race, and it's as simple as that. It doesn't matter if he's 80-1, 800-1, 8,000-1, or 8-1. Makes no difference whatsoever. He handled the conditions best. He showed a good attitude. He's got a bit of an awkward head carriage, in my opinion, but he did it nicely, and you can't crib him for winning the race. The conditions were what they were. Going forwards, would I want him against the same horses on better ground? No chance, he'd get lapped. But on the day, he was the best horse in the race on the conditions, and he was a good winner, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, do you think it's purely the price that sort of gives people this opinion, Matt? Because in looking at the run, it did everything right. It didn't cause any interference. It wasn't a fortunate winner in terms of the way that the race panned out. Is it purely just pocket talk, do you think? Simply because not many people backed it. It was 80-1, and people just want to sort of shit on it, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't pocket talk. It's. I think there's a certain level of deflation when the sexy horses don't win. That's the bottom line. I think the media hypes it up, TV, all the rest of it. They have their select little group of horses that they want to win, and we're trying to build up these superstars, aren't we? And then you get a horse that not many people had considered win at a big price. I think there's just a level of deflation, and I think people automatically assume that all the others must have run under par, but it certainly wasn't the case. It's horses for courses. He was given a good ride. He handled the conditions. It's like a bit like football. You play to your strengths. Teams like, Mourinho used to say, park the bus. You play to your strengths. Teams like Burnley and these other they play to their strengths, don't they? They might nick a 1-0 win at Liverpool or a Man City because they play to their strengths, and the conditions played to the German horse's strength, and he was a perfectly worthy winner, but he wasn't one of the sexy ones, wasn't he? And it didn't fit the narrative. It didn't fit the narrative that the television wanted.
No, I mean, I think I can't remember which media outlet it was, whether it was one of the big ones, whether it was ITV, Sky Racing, or Racing TV. They were hyping it up as basically. I think they put a poll out who wins, whether or not it'd be Snowfall, Tanawa, or either of the Godolphin horses. And many people were quick to jump on the bandwagon of that. I think it was a tweet. And they posted it all over their sort of graphics of these four horses, these four sort of UK-based horses as well. Perhaps a bit unfair to some of the French horses as well. But I think it's perhaps a bit of a slap in the face that, these things do happen. You do see, albeit not very often, 100-1 winners in big races, Monmouth in the Grand National. It's not. I think you're right that for the narrative they want a superstar, and I suppose for racing you want a superstar. You want the next Frankel, the next Enable, the next See the Stars, and so on. But yeah, I mean, fair play to the horse.
It's horse racing. It's horse racing, isn't it? We've said it before. I mean, was Norton's Coin the best 3-mile chaser at the time when he won the Gold Cup 100-1? No. Was Night of Thunder a better horse than Kingman when he beat him in the 2000 Guineas? No. But they're just flesh and blood.
But that's what makes racing great as well. For that, you've got the sort of, I mean, smaller yard. I mean, albeit in Germany, but like you said, they're not from one of the big sexy stables. They're not from one of the big powerhouses, are they? But to start cribbing it too much, that takes away from that's probably the best of their training that they're probably ever going to expect in terms of their training career. The poor lass that looks after it, that's going to be the pinnacle of their racing lives. And to start crapping all over it simply because it wasn't the premier horse that you expected to win, perhaps a bit unfair. But anyway, chaps, obviously that was one race of what was a really decent week of racing. And as such, it's that time of the week whereby we've got to pinpoint one, maybe two horses that have run over the last week that people should be putting in their notebooks. As always, chaps, it is time for the Racing Notebook. I want to kick things off, chaps. A bit boring. I am going to go to Longchamp. It's a horse practice for next season now. Obviously, we're coming into the sort of national hunt season, the flats sort of winding down. Actually, before I give that, I will sort of quick shout out a horse that I have given as a notebook horse. I think it was perhaps 2, maybe 3 episodes back. Does run tomorrow at Navan, called Teddy Boy. I think he's got a decent chance whether or not he goes in. I'm not too sure. He finished 3rd last time out, but hopefully tomorrow might be the day. That being said, horse I liked, again, is perhaps a little bit obvious, but finished 2nd over in France. It was in the Jean-Luc Lagardère. It's Noble Truth. It was beaten by Frankie on Angel Blur, but I really like Noble Truth. I actually didn't think the horse would be up to that level. It's not. It had been relatively lightly campaigned, and I had question marks over whether or not it would be a Group 1 horse, but I think it is. It proved that it will do, and I think it's a horse they'll train on for next year. It's boring. It's perhaps a bit obvious picking a horse at Group 1 level in France, but that'd be one that potentially would go in a 60 to follow next season, something like that. Noble Truth, that's the one for me. Chris?
Yeah, I've only got the one from this weekend, but I'm glad to say that a bit of a cliff horse of mine for this season, Aldari, finally went in. He was absolutely smashed on Saturday, and he won on what looked like the wrong side of the track. I think he's a top-class handicap type when he gets his ground, but he definitely wants some soft in it or good soft. So I'd be respectful of him next time, depending what the handicapper does. But I was interested in a horse who ran in I think it was the 550 at Redcar. Politics to call the horse out of the Philip Macon yard. He's only 3 years old, very lightly raced, and went up against some gnarly, grizzly type sprint handicappers, and just looked a little bit. It was a man and boys type thing. He looks like he will come on for the experience. I think he finished 7th, but he wasn't beaten far. It's possible he wants better ground. He might not want it too soft, but he's definitely a horse worth following in handicap company, even if it goes into next season when the ground's better, or if he goes on the all-weather. But I would definitely keep an eye out for him. He's got races in him, and that horse is Politics.
And yours, Matt?
Well, time for a little bit of trumpet blowing. I did in this section we did a few weeks back. I put up a horse called Wanese. I saw win at Ascot. He followed up at Salisbury the other day. Whether they're going to run him in a race and post trophy or the Verton Futurity or whatever it's called these days, maybe they might give it a crack at the end of the season. But he's definitely going the right way, and I was pleased to see him win again because I thought he's definitely a horse with some ability and he stays well. So maybe a crack at the Vertem race and post trophy. And an eye catcher that everyone has seen is not going to surprise many, but the Gosden horse that won handicap at Ascot, I think on Friday, was it called Sunray Major?
Yeah.
He was backed like he was a group horse. He went off about 6-4 or something silly. I can't remember, but he won it with such ease. It was absurd. So I'll be surprised. There's probably not a lot left for him this season, but he'll come back next year and he might have a. I mean, he's not the same type of horse as physically or the same trip as Lord North, but he's definitely he was a group horse there in a handicap for sure.
Definitely, I agree with that and all.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive, wasn't it? I mean, pretty light. I think it was, if my mind serves me right, relatively lightly raced as well. Certainly not had a hard campaign as it is like. It's certainly room to progress. Yeah, I couldn't follow either of them. So obviously, make sure you make a note of those, put them in your trackers or in your little racing notebooks. Hopefully, we can end up with a bit of profit or horses worthwhile noticing. Now, chaps, one thing we did a couple of weeks back was what we call our fantasy stable. Horses over the past, I think, 20 odd years. We ended up with a handicapper, a horse over 1 mile 4. I was stiffed in the 1 mile 4 division and the sprinter. But anyway, and I think, what was the other one? A sprinter, and a long distance horse. And we're doing something similar again. However, this time it is going to be all around jockeys. I have got the rules and I will put them up on the screen now as I read through them. It is our fantasy jockey stable. Flat jockeys only, chaps. The rules are as follows. Each player picks 4 jockeys. 1 must be age 40 or over, the veterans. 1 must be age 25 or under. And the other 2 must be aged between 26 and 39. You can pick them in any order. None of us can have the same jockey, obviously. Each jockey must be a current active flat jockey. And they must have ridden in either Ireland or the UK. Now, chaps, if you place your chosen jockey in the wrong age group, you forfeit your go until your next turn. So hopefully you know what you're talking about. Now, in order to make it fair, just as we did with our fantasy stables, I will spin a certain wheel. Whoever goes first gets the first choice from any of the 4 criteria. Who's second, and third, and so on. However, the order will then reverse.
Get on with it, man. He's going to fucking rig it anyway. Any money this goes to fucking Raw. Any money. Cheating bastard.
I will tell you shortly. So if I bring that up onto the screen, hopefully we can all see that. We can indeed.
Come on, boy.
So if I hit this.
Oh, stop it there.
Keep going, pal. Keep going.
What here? This bit? Yeah, right there. Yeah. That's it. No. Here we go. Let's see. Who's up first?
Blue. Look at this.
Keep going.
Look at this.
Oh.
So, there we go.
I'll bet you $1,000 is going to old man category straight away.
I'll double that. And up second, so Matt goes first. Up second.
Hey, fucking second again. Same as last time. What a load of old bollocks.
Mr. Connolly.
Robbed.
And I am therefore last. So, get rid of this. And type my name in there. There we go. And get rid of that. Okay, chaps. So, without further ado, Matt, you can have any jockey, as long as obviously they fit the criteria for either group. I mean, me and Chris will mortgage the out on whatever you're going to pick here, but you know, I'm going to guess it's an over 40 jockey by any chance.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to spice it up a bit.
Oh, you shit! Oh, no, right.
Because
you're a wanker.
See, he's not just broken his arm, he's broken something in his head. He's on really strong pain relief.
I felt like I won it with See the Stars last time, so I'm going to go for the under 20.
So 25 or under?
Yeah, right. So I'm going to go for Tom Marquand.
Shit. Sorry.
Right. So on the basis that we see it time and time again that these young jockeys who are extremely inexperienced horsemen, boys, if you like, apprentice jockeys, that all of a sudden get to stardom. They ride out their claims in a year and a half. They're riding big winners, big handicaps, and then they completely disappear off the face of the earth because they're in with the big boys. And we're talking about 20-year-olds, 19, 20-year-old lads that, let's be honest, are inexperienced jockeys. You know, they can make horses run, but there's a lot more to it than that. So a lot of them disappear. They have to go away, learn their trade, learn and understand horses, how horses work, how racing works, and they have to come back. And some do and some don't. I mean, Jimmy Fortune was a classic example. He was a champion apprentice, disappeared into the wilderness, come back stronger. There's been a few, but Tom Marquand was a very good apprentice, and he might have had a couple of quiet seasons in between. Ross Orion's another one. He'll be another good jockey. But Tom Marquand really is playing with the big boys now. He's got the plum job at Haggis's, which is a very good yard. And, you know, he went over to Australia and rode a day super well. And he's a very solid, dependable jockey for a young chap, and he's only going to get better. So Tom.
I mean, yeah, he's 23 years old as well, so he's well within that sort of like age limit. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I had a list of various jockeys, as I'm sure we all did, but he was top of my list for the under 25s. I was actually shocked that he was that young. To be fair, I thought he would be sort of on the cusp of the sort of 25 bracket, and to land a job as big as the William Haggis one. Fair enough, full testament to how good a talent he is. So, Mr. Connolly, that's Matt's done. You don't have to pick an under 25. I'm sure you won't.
No, I'm gonna go with I'm going with an under 25, and might not get the recognition he deserves in the UK, but he gets plenty of recognition in Ireland. He's only 19 years old, I think, and he was appointed Johnny Murtaugh's stable jockey at the beginning of the year, and that is Ben Cohen. I mean, this lad is absolutely sensational. He's been brought through and nurtured by Johnny Murtaugh, who we'll all remember Johnny Murtaugh as being one of the greater jockeys of his generation. Of all time, perhaps, he had some brilliant moments, and you've watched this young kid. He looked a little bit raw when he first came onto the scene. He's definitely still learning in the job, but he's got the world at his feet. And Johnny Murtaugh's yard, you know, they're producing high quality horses now. He's had winners with the likes of Sonny Boy Liston over here. It's a great experience for Ben Cohen, and for me, over the next 10, 15 years, he's going to be certainly Irish champion jockey at some point, and he's just an absolutely fantastic young jockey. I think it's fantastic that Johnny Murtaugh has put the amount of trust he has in him at 19 to be riding for a yard with horses like that in it. It's a great example from Johnny Murtaugh to do such a thing, and he's definitely going to be a champion jockey as Ben Cohen, so Ben Cohen for me.
Yeah, no, exactly. Cracking shout. I think, to be honest, again, I was shocked when you said 19. Thought he was a bit older than that. He seems to have been around a little bit, a season or two. But yeah, fair enough. Fair shout. Now, do I play the game and go for an under 25? No, I fucking don't. I go for an over 40 and I go Frankie Dettori. You can also know. That's the black caviar, and that's for See the Stars. You can set off. You're going to avoid the best. You had your chance.
If we don't play properly, Rory will take his ball home.
That's the one. In the stream off now. End of story. That's it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, go on about Frankie Dettori, Jesus Christ. But thank you very much for such a gift. I'll send you both a Christmas card. Lovely.
We already let you go first because you only know 1 over 45 anyway.
Hey. I'm not going to give the game away, but the other 4 I've got under here, but that's fine. But because I was last, I now go first this round. So you've really shot yourselves in the foot. So I don't need to look for an under 25 because the rest are just mine. So I'm kind of thinking if it's going to be 26 to 39, do I go Sheen Murphy? Do I go... Oh, you know what? I'm going to stiffen a lot of you. I'm going to go at the age of 38. I'm going to go Ryan Moore. There we go. And sod a lot of you. You both said the other week, oh, yeah, I wouldn't have any other jockey ride my other than Frankie or Ryan. There we go.
Surprised you haven't brought Lester Piggott out of retirement, you.
Yeah, well, you had your chance. The pair of you, you could have had any horse, any jockey, any age group. You didn't. You left them both to me. Chris, your go, mate. Enjoy.
Captain Cunt Chops, fucking.
That's it. Well, you enjoyed then throwing. I've got these former champions over here.
Well, I'm going to stick in the same age group because I don't want this guy stealing. He's 27 years old. He's been a 2-time champion jockey in Ireland. I think he's about to be a 3-time champion jockey in Ireland, and that is Colin Keane. Fabulous jockey again. Rides a lot of winners for Jay Lyons. Has had a few winners for Dermot Wells. Ridden Tarnawa to Breeders' Cup victory. Sensational jockey again. I mean, the Irish produce the amount of jockeys they produce, top-end jockeys from being young lads into champions. He's absolutely brilliant, this Colin Keane. There's been a lot of talk about whether at some point down the line he'd replace Ryan Moore with the Coolmore job, but regardless of where he goes or if he doesn't, he's the best jockey in Ireland right now, is Colin Keane, and he'll be champion jockey again. Fabulous lad, great speaker, great rider, easy pick.
I mean, you never guess your surname was Connolly, would you? Jeez. I mean, I'm just underlining the fact that I'm called Rory and we'll just ignore my middle name. But anyway, Matt, yours, my man.
Yeah, same category. 33-year-old William Buick. Another one of these. William Buick, where William Buick is now, is where I expect Tom Marquand to be in 10 years' time when he's the same age. Buick came through the Bolden Apprentice Academy. I still remember him claiming 7 when he was riding on the all-weather Andrew Bolden's own horses, running his own colours, which is usually the way that most Balding apprentices start. They ride the old horses in the yard, and he was a very good apprentice. And look at him now. I mean, chief rider for Godolphin. Obviously missed out on a Derby winner this year, but he gets it right more often than he gets it wrong. He's a cool customer. He puts the horses in the right position. I know he's riding good horses. Of course he's riding good horses, but there's an element of pressure that come with that, and he's always in the right place 99% of the time. And he's a reliable, solid jockey. And it's not just. I mean, as we've seen this season, he's up there with Oisin Murphy, battling it out for the Jockeys Championship. It's not just Godolphin horses he win on. He'll ride hat-trick for various other yards at Kempton and various other places. He's absolutely solid.
I mean, from what we discussed on a previous podcast, are we right in thinking that he also rode Bronze Angel as an apprentice when he claimed so much?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, geez, yeah. Top. I mean, I was looking as well. He's he looks baby faced anyway, but he's one of those jockeys that's been around a long time, but he's still relatively young. You know, I couldn't really argue with that, to be fair. You know, certainly on the shortlist. Chris, your next choice, my man, you've got the over 40 or the between age.
Thought we only had.
Oh, no, sorry, Matt. You'll go again, mate. I apologise.
I'm gonna. Well, since you've pinched Ryan Moore, my
didn't pinch. You had the chance to have him. You decided not to. The pair of you.
I mean, he for me, he still is the best jockey riding at the moment. It all depends. I mean, it outride Frankie on a Monday afternoon at Catterick at 100%. At maybe on the big occasions, Frankie's still got it, but Ryan Moore's class act. I'm going to have to go for the over 40s category.
Chris getting worried. Chris getting worried.
Jamie Spencer. No, I'm only joking.
I was going. I want
to. It's not Jamie Spencer, though. That was my little joke. I'm going to go for Kevin Manning.
There we go. There goes Chris's Irish quartet.
I mean,
gone.
You know, poetic flair. You know, I mean, it's not just about his riding ability, is it? It's the connection he's had with Bolger for all these years. The fact that the guy's 40, what is he, 45, 46 or something?
54. 54.
He's tall. Is he 54? Is he?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. He's tall. You know, he looks hungry. I mean, how like you think all those years he must have been wasting all those years, which is we know it's not easy. Some of us find it easier than others. But I mean, what a professional guy, and he's proved he can still do it. I mean, in a tight finish, like he proved in the Guineas on Poetic Flair. If the horse is good enough, he's good enough, and to be doing that at fit like Chris has just pointed out, I had no idea he was in his mid-50s. Is sensational.
Yeah. I didn't think he was that old either.
I'll tell a lie. He's 51. I knew he was in his 50s. 51-year-old. Yeah. Absolute. Oh, is he? Yeah. Just let me check. How old is he, Rory?
I don't know, Chris. I'll be honest with you, he wasn't on my shortlist.
54. He's 54-year-old. That bloke.
Yeah.
Honestly, astonishing ride. I can't believe you pinched him off me. What an absolute bastard.
Well, it was either him or Franny Norton.
Right. Well, it comes to you, Mr. Connolly.
Well, I think I've only been left with one jockey over 40 now, but I was going to go with him anyway. If someone picked Kevin Manning, I'm going to go with Joe Fanning. I think Joe will be in his 50s now. He'll be late 40s at the very worst.
Joe Fanning's 51. Joe Fanning.
Yeah,
he was on the list. I'll be honest.
I mean, he's ridden for Mark Johnston for years. He's a regular fixture up and down the country, especially up north. And you know, he's had a Group 1 winner this year. He had Subjectivist, didn't he, at Ascot? I mean, it's just incredible that when you get past your mid to late 30s, in most other sports, you get to 35 and you are seen as past your prime. You're looking at extremely fit athletes here who most of the time have to starve themselves and so on. And to be as fit and as strong to compete with lads 20, 30, sometimes even more years younger than themselves, and to still be winning on the biggest stage is an absolute incredible achievement for men of that age. And I take my hat off to the likes of Frankie. I think Frankie is one of the all-time greats. Kevin Manning's another one. But Joe Fanning deserves a healthy deal of respect as well. He's been doing it for a long time now, and he has a lot of rides, Joe Fanning, compared to a few of the other jockeys. Yeah. He rides every single day for Mark Johnson. So I tip my hat to him. I'm full of admiration for guys who can dedicate themselves to the sport for such a long period of time. So Joe Fanning.
I think you kind of look at someone like Joe Fanning, and especially someone like Joe Fanning who's of that age and who does ride day in, day out for a big yard like Johnston. Fair enough. He does get the credit in terms of he's got a big job. But he's the sort of jockey that you'd want to see win multiple Group 1s. Do you know what I mean? Who puts in the art graft, the miles, who perhaps doesn't get the recognition he deserves in terms of the big accolades, the big, multiple Derby winners or classic winners or art winners and so on and so forth. Don't get me wrong, he's running Group 1 winners, but he probably deserves more sort of big race success than he gets each year. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm surprised you didn't go for someone like Christophe Soumillon, but fair play.
Christophe Soumillon's 40, you know?
He is exactly 40, so 40 and over.
Oh, I have not read stipulations properly.
In a year's time, you could have had Hayley Turner.
We won't answer that.
No. I went to make a joke and went, let's just avoid that. So moving swiftly on. Well, I'll be honest with you, chaps. I don't know whether or not you're feeling a bit guilty because of the last time we did a fantasy stable, but it's now my choice for my third. And Oisin Murphy's still on the board. And I mean, I don't know whether or not it's Help an Invalid Day. I mean, that would be Matt, to be fair.
Guess which football team he supports, boys? Man United, fella. Yeah, stereotypical glory by you, eh?
Yeah, whoa. You've given me this on a plate. Now, do I take it or do I not? Or do I go for something a bit left field? You know what? I will. I'll go.
Hey!
You know what? I'll go. Do I go, say, choice up? I'll leave Murphy for one of you two. Might as well hope that the vote goes a little bit close.
I'm not having Murphy, so feel free. Murphy's not even on my radar.
I might go Richard Kingscott.
No! What are you doing?
There we go. We'll go Richard Kingscott. Obviously, he's ended up with St. Michael's. I'm very chuffed I've gone Richard Kingscott now. 33-year-old. He's got the St. Michael Stout job. He's another jockey that I think, day in, day out rider who's ended up similarly to Joe Fanning in the sense that he's ended up with a big trainer. Perhaps isn't the powerhouse he once was, Sir Michael Stout, but hopefully time will tell in terms of, he's not had one of those big Group 1 sort of success stories relatively recently. But yeah, top quality jockey, great in the saddle, has a touch of class, and that's what's got him to be recognised by such a big trainer and such a big yard. Yeah, Richard Kingscott, my third choice of the 4 jockeys. Now that means it goes. Is it me again? Isn't it? Yeah, it is. Brilliant. Well, we'll round things up then. Under 25s. Do I want Kieran Fallon Jr.? Do I want Ross O'Ryan? Or do I go for the public vote and go with Holly Doyle? Yeah, we'll go Kieran Fallon Jr. There we go. I think he's another that you can tell he takes after his dad. I think people have made the comment that he looks a little bit like his dad in the saddle as well, in terms of his riding style. He's gonna. Does he still have a claim, or is that well and truly gone now? He's gone, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's gone.
Kieran Fallon Jr.'s claim, is it gone?
He's written that out.
Yeah. He's still got his, he's on the second string for.
Second jockey behind the scene, Murphy, isn't it? Qatar Racing.
Qatar Racing, thank you. Again, another jockey that serious talent. He's actually a jockey I thought is actually a little bit older than I thought he was. He's actually 23. I thought he was potentially in his late teens, earlier 20s. But again, I think he's destined for big things, just like his dad. Perhaps not going to emulate as much as his dad has. If he does, then he's a very, very top jockey. But yeah, Kieran Fallon Jr. That's mine. Chris, back to you. Your fourth and final one.
Yeah, well, obviously I was going to choose Richard Kingscott now. I absolutely love Richard Kingscott. I think he's a fabulous jockey, a proper professional jockey. Yeah. I don't mean that in a demeaning sense. I mean, he's been at it for a long time. He's in his mid-30s now, but he's still based at Manor House, Tom Dascombe's yard, and he has plenty of success for Tom Dascombe. But it's great to see a jockey like Richard being supported by a trainer like Sir Michael Stout, and he won't let you down too often, Richard. You know, he's a very capable jockey, strong, good judge of pace, but he's not my pick anyway because Rory's pinched him. So unluckily for me, I'm going to have to change tact and go with Asheen Murphy. Well, I'll go with Asheen Murphy. I mean, obviously he was used sparingly when he first came over to Andrew Balding's yard. He was kept for good rides in handicap company when the Baldings wanted to strike, which maybe didn't endear him to the rest of his colleagues in the weighing room, but he's a multiple champion jockey and well respected all the way around the world. I mean, the absolute love they have for him in places like Japan is incredible, and you know, he's obviously learned how to speak the language and a few other things. He's spent time there. He's a bit of an international jockey and he's a bit of a big shot and everything else, but he's still a very, very good jockey, a good judge of pace. He's got a decent job here. He has winners for everyone almost every day. He's not just reliant upon one yard or his retained position with the Qatar Racing Group. And yeah, Asheen Murphy will do for me as a replacement for Richie Cunningham.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really fault it. I mean, likely to win the Jockeys Championship as well this year, and so, you know, fair play. Matt, you started us off. You'll also end proceedings as well. Your fourth and final between the 26 and 39 age category, my friend.
Well, before I reveal my last jockey, it really is criminal that none of us have had Holly Doyle. It really is. That, I mean, let's get this straight. Unless the internet's lying to me, the jockey stands at the moment as Ocean Murphy 165, Buick 145, Holly Doyle 141. If that's correct, that's sensational, quite frankly, isn't it? And the fact that we've overlooked her for other jockeys is... And
yet you went for a fella instead, Tom Mark. Well, I went for Kieran Fallon, and Chris went over to Ireland for going.
But it really,
I know, perhaps it was a bit cruel saying whether or not I'd be the public favourite. Sorry.
It is criminal that we've overlooked her. But my final mid-range jockey is going to be James Doyle. He's one of these guys that, you know, if I look at a race and I fancy a horse in it, if he's on it, I've got no worries. I know that he's solid. That there's no ifs and buts about it. He can ride from the front, he can ride from the back, he can ride from the middle. He had a high profile job riding for Juddmonte, and he lost that, and then he lost the gig at Godolphin for a bit. But the sign of a good jockey is when people come back. I mean, come back and use them again. You know, he took it on the chin. There was no hard feelings, and everyone's using him again now. Like he's back as Godolphin's second jockey again when he lost that deal. He's absolutely solid. He's a tall lad that struggles with his weight again, and but he's reliable, isn't he? You know that I think people had a pop at him for his ride on Sea Class in the Arc. But I thought that was sensational. I mean, you know, you're a nostrils width between being you're a hero or a villain, and you know, one more stride and he's given that horse the perfect ride you could ever give a horse. And I think he's if I had a horse in a big race that I had anything to do with, owned it, trained it, whatever, if he was free, I'd book him without any hesitation.
I think what's a good sign of a jockey is the fact that a lot of the big yards are happy to use him. I'm racking my brains and I can't think of any of the major. You know, I know that he's ridden for Johnston. I know he's ridden for Haggis. I know he's ridden for Godolphin. So that obviously covers Side Vincent, Charlie Appleby. I think he's ridden for Stout as well previously. Like you said, he's had big, high-profile jobs, and he's consistently been at that level.
Didn't he write Poet's Word to win the King George? Didn't he?
Yeah.
For Stout.
Yeah. I don't know if he's ever had a Ballydoyle ride, but I mean, aside from that, I think he's ridden for every major owner / trainer. Like, I can't think of any sort of yard, like, you know, the big premium Group 1 winning yards that he hasn't consistently ridden for as well, not just on the odd occasion, like ridden numerous times, you know, for these big trainers. And that's probably a testament to just how good he is. I mean, I'll be honest with you, he was on my shortlist as he should be. I think I just wanted to throw the curveball in there by not picking him or Rasheen Murphy and going for Kingscote. But yeah, that's the four of us. So run those through. Matt, you've gone for your under 25. You've got Tom Marquand. For the over 40s, well, 40 and over, you've got Kevin Manning. And your 26 to 39, you've got William Buick and James Doyle. Chris, you're under 25, you've got Ben Cohen. You're 40 and over, you've got Joe Fanning. And you're between age group, you've got Colin Keane and Asheen Murphy. And I, hopefully, should absolutely pace this. The under 25s, Kieran Fallon Jr., 40 and over, Frankie, and the between Ryan Moore and Richard Kingscote. There we go. I've shafted you both. Happy days. Take some of that. So if you are watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or listening to it as a podcast for the next week, we'll put this up as a vote to vote for which of the three of us have the best stable of jockeys, and we will reveal the results next episode. Chaps, thank you very much for that. So, as we end every single show, the week before, I always give you a bit of a hint or a bit of a topic in terms of horses, whereby I will be giving clues, 5 horses, and it'll be Chris against Matt. Matt snatched it last week. Matt is 1 up across the whole series with 4 wins to 3. It is episode 8 tonight. So therefore, whether or not Chris can claw one back and make it 4 all overall, whether or not Matt storms into a 2 victory lead, we shall see. But chaps, it is ARC winners from the year 2000 onwards in another game of Who Am I?
Who am I?
So, chaps, as always, for those that have never watched the show or listened to the show, that's probably loads of you.
99%.
Hello, everyone.
But yeah, that's whereby I pick 5 horses that come under a certain criteria. For each horse, I will give 5 clues. If either of them get it after the first clue, it's 5 points. Second clue, 4 points, and so on. If either of them guess and they get it wrong, they cannot guess that horse again, and the other person has free reign to listen to as many clues as they think they need. So, chaps, you know the drill by now. This week it is, as obviously it was the ARC on Sunday, it is Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe winners from the year 2000 up to the present day. So without further ado, chaps, horse number 1. Clue number 1. Clue number 1, horse number 1. Godolphin had 2 very well fancied runners in this year's ARC, but neither could come out on top. I, however, am the last Godolphin-owned ARC winner.
Matt.
Chris.
Matt's in there first.
And Marion Bard.
Yep.
Shall we see? Indeed it is. It's Marion Bard. Obviously, for those that are bothered, the other clues were going to be trained by Said bin Sabur and ridden by Frankie Dettori, who also teamed up to win the race the year before.
Lucky.
Just like this year's ARC winner, I claimed group race victories in Germany. I was a well-travelled horse, having raced in England, Ireland, France, Germany, Australia, and Dubai. And my last ever race was my ARC win. It was indeed Marion Bard. That is 5 points to Mr. Polly.
I think he was originally trained by Michael Jarvis, if I'm not wrong, and owned by a guy called Saif Ali in his early days. And he was pinched.
He beat Suleimani and all. And Suleimani Renault Godolphin got year after, wasn't he?
Indeed. You ready, chaps? Horse number 2. Close. Clue number 1, horse number 2. I was the last 3-year-old colt to win the race.
Matt.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
See the stars?
Is it See the Stars? Shall we see? It is not See the Stars.
That's a new graphic.
There we go.
Chris.
Big red cross.
Chris.
Well, do you want another clue, or are you convinced?
Frankie. Golden Horn.
Yeah.
It is indeed Golden Horn.
Yeah.
That is 5-all. You got it after one clue. Fair enough. 5-all. Those are the first two we had. Marion Bard, and that indeed was Golden Horn. My trainer went on to win the race twice after my success. Prior to my ARC win, I won the Irish Champion Stakes as the short-priced 5-4 favourite. I lost just twice in my 9-race career. My silks included a red cap. That indeed was Golden Horn. There we are, chaps. So, 5-all, all square. Horse number 3. Clue number 1. I am one of only 7 horses to win the race consecutively. I am one of only 7 horses
Matt.
to win.
Oh, fucking hell.
This is a guess. Trev.
Is it Trev? Shall we see? Indeed it is. It was. It is Trev. You lucky son of a gun. It was one of 2. The other clues were, I know I was a bit sly with this, I'm not going to lie.
Do you want to make these a bit fucking easier, or what? Come on.
I mean, you could have shouted Enable. The jockey that rode me on my last ARC win was not born in either the UK or Ireland. Again, that could have been Enable. I was trying to be a sly bastard. Clue number 3 was the last time I raced in the ARC. I finished outside of the first 3. Again, also Enable. I had an owner from the Middle East. Again, also potentially Enable. However, clue number 5. Kingston Hill finished 4th. Kingston Hill finished 4th in the ARC. I won at a massive 25-1. My winning odds, however, were 11-1. That was the last one that gave it away between the two, and it was indeed Trev. That is 10 points to Mr. Polly, 5 points to Mr. Connolly. Horse number 4, still all to play for. Horse number 4, clue number 1. I recorded the fastest winning time in the ARC in the modern era. I recorded the fastest winning time in the ARC in the modern era. Clue number 2. I never won a group or listed race in the UK. I never won a group or listed race in the UK. Clue number 3. I raced in the US on 2 separate occasions at 2 different courses. I raced in the US on 2 separate occasions at different courses. Clue number 4. I won a Group 1 race at Longchamp, but it wasn't the ARC. Chris?
Can't be Waldgeist.
Is that what we're going for?
Well, yeah, but I can't imagine he had fastest time.
It wasn't Waldgeist. It was not Waldgeist. Do you want the other clue, Matt?
Yeah, might as well.
Final clue. My most successful offspring won the Group 2 Vintage Stakes at Goodwood in 2020. My most successful offspring won the Group 2 Vintage Stakes at Goodwood in 2020. No.
Trying to think. My mind's gone blank. No idea.
It's not Hurricane Run, is it? Or
No. I'll give you another clue. It's gone now. There's no points, but I will give you another clue. Did finish second in 2 consecutive Irish Champion Stakes.
Dylan Thomas.
No, Chris backed it anti-post at 25-1.
Found.
Oh dear.
Found. The horse that Chris was banging on about last week. Found. There we go.
That was the fastest ARC, wasn't it?
You found didn't win it at Longchamp though, did you?
Oh, exactly. That's why the clue says I won a Group 1 race at Longchamp, but it wasn't the ARC.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Ooh, that's so cryptic.
Oh, I love you.
Well, the good news is I can't lose now.
No, you can only draw. Here we go. Horse number 5. Oh, just to rub it in as well. Horse number 4 was indeed found. Go. She won her arc at Chantilly. Go. Horse number 5. Clue number 1. I claimed my arc victory at the age of 3. Doesn't narrow it down really, does it? But you never know. Clue number 2. Earlier that year, I won both the Epsom and Irish derbies.
Matt.
Yep.
Is it Sindar?
Shall I have a look? It is indeed Sindar. Fair play. Fair play. Hailing from the yard of trainer John Ox. The year I won the Arc, there were no English trained runners, and my stablemate Ray Poor finished last of the 10 entrants. We go again. The first 3 clues could have alluded to See the Stars.
Yeah,
I forgot what a good horse he was, Sindar.
Sindar. We go.
He's a bit of a Lantara.
14-5.
Forgotten.
And well, yeah. 14-5 is another win for Matt. That's for the series. That's 5 wins to Matt, 3 for Mr. Connolly. However,
robbed.
What I will do, chaps, next week.
Stop mentioning fucking years to be handy or something like that.
What I'm going to do, chaps, seeing as though we talked about jockeys, obviously the name of the round is Who Am I? I'm going to put horses to one side. I want to have current, active, flat jockeys.
Huh?
Next week, Who Am I? It's not horses for a certain race.
Oh, God.
It's current, active, flat jockeys. Going to have 5 current, active, flat jockeys, 5 different clues. See who comes out on top. Obviously, Matt's come out again on top. Seems to be the sort of norm now. Whether or not Chris can peg one back next week. He's got a week to prep. Obviously, anyone who's been watching the show and he likes, comments and shares, very much welcome. Make sure you head on over to Facebook and Twitter to vote and interact with the bits and bobs that we'll be putting out there. I've been Rory Paddock. There's been a pair of idiots. Been the Turf Talk podcast for picksfromthepaddock.co.uk.